And I remember I went up on stage and alone and started singing Danny's song in House Corner. And there were a couple of beautiful girls in the front row, and they were looking up at me going, "Get down, get down." And so I would go, "Oh, they like it. Okay, I'm doing better."
They were like, no, get down, get off the stage.
That's what they were saying.
Oh, no, seriously?
Seriously. Jimmy came up to me later and he said, "How did you do that?" He said, "Man, they were telling you to get off the stage. You just got better and better." Not knowing helps.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Hello from beautiful Sydney, Australia. I am down here for a couple of months to film The Voice. I'm a coach on The Voice down here in Australia, and about a week into it, and unlike any experience I've ever had, seeing and hearing some absolutely stunning talent and seeing people's dreams about to come true to some degree or another. I don't even think it's necessarily all about the winning. It's about the competing. It's about the experience of performing in front of, a nationwide audience. For these, most of the artists are really young, 18, 19 years old. It's quite extraordinary. And I'm really enjoying it. I really like my fellow coaches, Ronan Keating, Kate Miller-Heidke, and Melanie C. from the Spice Girls. So we're all getting along really well and hanging out together in between and laughing and being treated to some absolutely amazing singers. So that's been fun. It's also just been fun to sort of be living in another country right now, particularly right now. I don't know if you can hear it. We've got birds all around us out here where we rented a house in a part of Sydney that's near enough to the beach that it reminds me a little bit of our life in Malibu. Speaking of Malibu, for those of you on social media, especially who have reached out and did reach out during the horrible fires, your concern was greatly appreciated. Our house was magically spared from tragedy. Several of our friends not so lucky, and then a lot of just countless people in that Malibu and Pacific Palisades community just lost everything. It's just devastating. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I'm trying to do an interview, Bird. I do want to thank all of you who reached out on social media, like I said, to me and Daisy. Horrible, horrible thing. When we finally did get to our home, it was surreal. It looked like a war zone. And my heart is broken for my friends and all those people who lost their homes. I still can't quite, if I could point to a reason why our home was spared, I would. It's just complete luck. So I feel horrible for those who weren't so lucky. But LA will rebuild and Malibu will rebuild. Pacific Palisades, it's gonna take some time, but it will rebuild. It's such a weird time out there right now, right? I'm very excited, however, about today's episode. This one was really special and kind of a unique experience for me. So the guest is Kenny Loggins. You'll hear a bit of this in the actual talk itself. But it was interesting for me. I didn't approach this the way I've approached any other guest. I've been friends with Kenny for almost 40 years. Well, maybe 40 years, maybe exactly 40 years. I was such a massive fan of his when I was in high school. Listening to his records and listening to his songwriting and his singing taught me so much about the kind of artist I wanted to be. He was greatly influential on my singing. And then a few short years later, I moved out to LA and just sort of through luck again, met him, and we ended up starting to hang out together. We didn't work together back then, but I was 18, 19 years old. He was Kenny fucking Loggins. And I guess he just took a liking to me. Racquetball was a big thing back then, and for me in high school, and Kenny was a racquetball player. So we bonded over racquetball. We played racquetball together. I would go to Santa Barbara, where he lived and lives, or he would come into LA. And so we would hang out. We would, play some racquetball, and then we would have a smoothie together or whatever. We didn't really work. It wasn't really a musical thing. And I always treaded lightly on my friendship with him for that reason, because I didn't want to overstep. He knew that I was a singer-songwriter and I was trying to get a career going, but I left that part of it alone. Just wanted to hang out with him. And we did for a couple of years. We were just friendly. And then some stuff happened that caused us to not really talk to each other for a while. I write about it in my book, Stories to Tell, actually, and I got his blessing to tell the whole story, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And it's, in its way, it's sort of a beautiful story in that we fell out. We kind of stopped talking to each other due to some circumstances. And then 10 or 12 years went by, and we found each other again and really started over. And I consider him one of my closest friends. We've shared some pretty powerful events together, experiences together. We've written some songs together that are so precious to me. I think are some of the best songs I've ever written. So we talk a little bit about a lot of this in this episode. What I found interesting was you'll notice that I'm talking a lot in this one. And it's not really an interview. I don't really do that. I just want to talk to people and hang out with people and hear their stories and tell my stories. It's really just a chat. And so there should be some give and take, but I feel like I was talking more than I usually do to a guest, or maybe too much, given the circumstances. And I realized that with men, particularly, it can be tricky to express yourself to them, to another guy, to say, hey, you really mean a lot to me, or what you do means so much to me. To be face to face with someone and have those exchanges, for whatever reason, even though, in 2025, it can be difficult for two men to do that. And this was an opportunity for me to sort of tell him what he's meant to me as an artist, as a guy, and without making it uncomfortable for him. So you'll see me doing that in this episode of Stories to Tell. But I really felt like it was so real and funny, so many funny moments, because Kenny and I give each other a lot of shit in a very loving way. I have so much respect for him. I adore him. And he's still just such a badass singer and talent. And I think that all comes across, our love for each other comes across, but also we're not covering like, so how did you get started in your career? Or, he's done so many interviews, he's covered that. I wanted to talk about real stuff. And that's what we did in this episode. And I hope you guys like it. My guest today is the truly amazing Kenny Loggins. Kenny Loggins.
Hey.
Yeah, don't cheers me with the coffee.
Yeah.
Like you were like, I want some white wine. I said, what do you want to drink during our chat?
Well, I'm not trying to be Dean Martin here.
But I'll carry that torch. And then you're like, oh, can I also have some coffee? So now I get it.
Yeah.
You're getting all hooched up on the coffee.
Yeah,
and then this will bring you down.
I get pumped up so I can keep up with your vast intellect. And then the wine kind of sets me back into it. So
There's not enough.
Shit.
There's not enough coffee for you to keep up with me. Mm-hmm.
Buddy, it's so good to see you. And I already know that this is just going to be a slugfest.
No, not as far as you know. What's your name again?
I like to start with something that is going to really illuminate people about you and the depths of you and what makes you tick and what you're about. So here's my first question. If you had to choose, what would be your top 3 favorite songs that I've recorded?
Enough of me talking about
Yeah,
myself.
I'm tired of
What do
talking
you
about
think
me.
of me?
You talk about me. I want to start because I have some good stories about us. And this show is really just
really?
about telling stories.
You want to tell the truth or
Some of it.
just good
Well, it's
stories?
the truth as I remember it.
That's a good title for your next book.
Yes. One of my favorite memories of you and me together is one of the first memories I have. It was really early on. So you and I, I'm sure we'll get into some of the other stuff, through our history. But when we became friends, I think it was 1980. No. 1983. So I was 19, and we didn't work together, but we were introduced, and we ended up playing racquetball together and being friendly. But we didn't work together at that point.
Yeah.
But I was such a massive fan, and I'm really dreading talking about that during this interview because you're just, well, it'll be good because I'll embarrass the shit out of you. But
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that we were hanging out and playing racquetball together, and I'd be like, I'm going to play racquetball with Kenny Loggins.
And now we're going to get you to play pickleball.
And now I'm going to play pickleball. I'm really into it, by the way.
You're a great racquetball player, though, so
Well, we've had some good
you should
matches.
be able to
I'm
transition.
really diving into the pickle,
Good. Diving into the pickle.
as they say.
I'm glad.
We know each other maybe 6 or 8 months. You had a place in Encino at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You said, yeah, we'll play racquetball. Can you pick me up? So I came to your house, and we're in the driveway, and you said, I don't know if I told you, but I've been working on this movie soundtrack. At that point, you'd already done several. And I've been writing some songs, and let me play you these couple of songs and see. I just want to know what you think. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. You were going to bounce these songs off me. And they were rough mixes, but they were pretty fleshed out. And the first song you played in my car, we cranked it up, was Footloose.
Really?
And I'm like this.
I hadn't submitted it yet.
I don't think so, but it was a rough mix. And I'm bopping to it, and then it was over. And I couldn't believe that you said, what do you think? And I said, I don't love
get
it.
it.
No, I mean, I'm such a fan, and I know your work so well, and it's fun, but like, I don't hear this as like being on the radio or anything like that. And you said, I swear to God, you went, dude, I'm not sure about it either. Like, I guess it serves the movie, but I'm not. Let me play this other one. Then you play me, I'm Free. And I freaked the fuck out. It's still one of my favorite songs you ever did. And I go, now that's a hit. and you were like, yeah, I feel really, really good about this one. Well, to the viewers at home, let me tell you what happened with those 2 songs and how wise we are at picking hits and not. I mean, I'm Free was a hit, but it wasn't Footloose. It wasn't career-changing like Footloose
I don't know if
was.
it even released I'm Free.
It was.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't keep up.
But we were both wrong. Luckily for you.
Now I have a story that kind of fits with that.
Okay.
As I went back in the studio and remixed with Umberto Gatica. And in the process, I would take the rough mixes, Umberto's rough mixes, down to my car and play the cassettes in my car.
Right.
And every time I would play the Footloose cassette, whoever I played it for would freak out. It was like, that's fantastic, that's a hit. But if I would play
Except
it
for
at
me.
home, if I would play the same tape at home or anywhere else, I wouldn't get the same reaction.
Oh.
And so I started thinking, what is it about my car? It has to be the speed of the tape. So I put an A440 on a cassette tape, made sure that it played at 440 in the studio, took it down to the car, and it played at 442. It played faster in my car.
So it was just hyping people up.
So I went up to Umberto and I said, tweak it up to 442, tweak up the master. And we mixed it at that little accelerated speed, and it made all the difference in the world.
Wow.
Then I got in the habit of, ever since Footloose was a hit, I got in the habit of tweaking everything up to 442.
Right.
It didn't work on everything.
Yeah. But that would you
worked on
think?
that,
But
though.
you really think that was like fairy dust, magic fairy
That
dust?
was huge. Yeah, it was a huge difference. Just a slight, it made everything tighter.
Amazing. I remember back in those days, it seems so primitive now, but before the internet and all that, do you remember that Umberto Gatica, who we're talking about, is a legendary engineer, mixer. He's worked with everybody. But I remember, I think it was Umberto who came up with this technology at the time in the early 80s, where he transmitted the mix that he was working on into our car. Do you remember this?
No.
He found some radio frequency.
Oh,
so
wow.
he would send it, he would find this frequency.
So it would be as if it was playing over the air.
Yeah, and bounce it to a frequency that wasn't taken by a station.
Mm-hmm.
So 93.3, right?
Yeah.
No station on that. It would tune in as if it were an FM station, but it would just be, we would go into the parking lot of the studio.
Always looking for a new, better way to check a mix.
Yeah.
The problem with that idea was that most stations, FM especially, would compress the shit out of a track
Right.
before it went over the air.
But that's what made it sound so great.
Yeah, but
Don't you think?
that you weren't doing that on the way to your car. It wasn't getting compressed in the same way. And every station had a
Right.
different compression algorithm. So
Right. But it still had that sort of radio kind of staticky thing that we were so used to at the time. Not that anybody listens to the radio now. Does anybody listen to the radio? You ever turn on the radio?
people must.
I guess people do.
It
but-
still exists.
Yeah. Let's talk about our sordid history. No, it's not sordid. It's awesome. It's actually one of the things I love about our history and our friendship. We almost never, when we get together to hang, we never talk small talk. We talk big themes.
Sorry about that.
No, I love it because I don't watch TV. We talk about life and children and relationships and
And you always buy the drinks, which keeps me coming back.
hey, and I get the truth out of you that way. But, I think about meeting you when I was 19 and how impactful that was because you really were someone who, I wasn't just a casual fan. I wasn't a sort of like, oh yeah, like I love that. Yeah, I like him or I like that song or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I had become, not from the start, but as of Keep the Fire album, I had become a devotee. So I didn't just love This Is It and Keep the Fire. I loved Who's Right, Who's Wrong. I loved Give It Half a Chance. And it was one of the first albums that appealed to me in a way as a fan, but even more so as a young singer, songwriter. And your use of falsetto, it was just different. It was like you didn't sound like anybody else. And I was in high school, getting ready to graduate from high school, and to think that, 3 years later, when High Adventure came out, I met you, and we, like I said, we played racquetball together. We hung out a few times. I remember one time, you did something that was kind of unbelievable. One of the times I came to Santa Barbara to play racquetball with you, you said, "So what are you working on? What are you writing?" And I was far from getting a record deal at this point. I think I was really just a background singer, but I was writing all the time. And I was very nervous about playing you anything, but I played you this song, this kind of techno pop song that I was working on. And you went, I remember this is quote, I remember this. You went, I like this. Do you want to fuck with it? And I went, I remember that quote. And I remember
that was not propositioning him. That was talking about
right.
a change in the music.
Yes. And I remember thinking, well, what does that mean? And you said, and you had a music room at that house in Santa Barbara. And we went into the music room and you actually made an edit on a fucking cassette tape for me, where you bounced one cassette to another. Because you said, this whole back half of this chorus is like, I don't think you need this. It's just, let's tighten it up. It's gonna be way more catchy. And this bit, the beginning of your chorus is great. And then you kind of veer off and it's bullshit.
Was I right? Or
You were 100% right. But what impressed me was that you took the time to do it because, and I guess looking back now, that's 41 years ago or something like that. to see you mentoring and taking the role of mentor in a way that
Now.
you are now.
Yeah.
I think maybe I was one of the first beneficiaries of that, because you actually spent, it wasn't like a quick thing. We spent a couple of hours. I remember just thinking, he's got to be so bored. Like, why is he doing this? You were into it. You were like, yeah, let's work on your song together. Like, and you didn't want anything. You just wanted to help me out. It was kind of amazing.
You didn't get my bill?
I've paid the bill for about the last 41 years.
Now you know me better. You know why I do that. It's just, I can't keep from meddling in other people's work.
Well, I don't know about that.
Always have an opinion.
You always have an opinion, and
so
I
do
love
you.
that. Yes, what's one of the things we have in common. And I like that we've always been able to shoot straight with each other. We don't like pull punches, because it's not personal. Like if you play me something and I go, man, I want to love it.
I know it's your problem.
What?
I know it's your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. But I remember that being an indicator of what you've become as a mentor now. But it was also the beginning of that, like I'd say a year, off and on for a year. We hung out, we played racquetball. You were really generous with that song, helping me with that song. And then just some shit happened, and then we kind of fell out. We lost touch for like 10 years. We didn't talk or see each other.
You probably beat me too often at racquetball.
And then when we kind of came back together and started hanging out again, it started with a couple, we traded favors with charity events.
Oh, it was really your dad's charity that you started.
It was actually it was yours in Santa Barbara. It was the Christmas thing. You asked me to come and sing a couple songs with you. Do a couple songs on my own and do a song for Unity.
Yeah.
That was the first thing we did.
I thought it was the other way around.
And then I said, hey, and I think you said something like, hey, if you ever need me.
Well, you had a situation where one of your most important acts had dropped out of that.
Right.
and you were days away from doing the show, and you had other than you had no headliner.
Right. And you went.
I didn't do that.
You were like, you did the best Napoleon Dynamite impression. You were like, oh, fine. No, you were like,
I didn't do
hey, man, I'm available. I'll come. We'll do it. And we worked up with the band. And
well, to be honest with you, I knew that it had been a long time since we actually connected. I knew that there was a level of, we just had grown so far apart that one of us, or maybe both of us, had to take that step forward and say, let's reconnect, let's start over.
Yeah.
So I saw that as an opportunity, and I appreciate you doing that.
Oh, no, it was awesome. Because then I remember the next day you came and stayed at my house. It was in Chicago, when I was living in Chicago. And then that began.
And then we started writing.
And then we started writing.
And now the list of hits we've written together is innumerable.
Well, I mean, we kind of started writing at a time
wrote some good
when,
songs, though.
That's the most important thing to me.
Not everything can be a hit.
I would have loved to have had a huge hit together.
Yeah, well, my documentary, or no, not my documentary, my Santa Barbara County Bowl show that you came and so graciously played at. We did The One That Got Away, which is one of my probably the favorites of all the songs we've written together.
Yeah,
I love the one we wrote. In my mind, it's for or about your dad.
Oh yeah,
it has to do with connecting to that benefit.
But also the one we just wrote recently for the documentary.
Yeah,
From There to Here.
Yeah,
we have to talk about. Let's join in this story, because it's a pretty remarkable story about when we wrote The One That Got Away, which I think might have been our first song. So you came to Chicago. We were just going to try to write together. Or maybe we had written some, I think we had one or two of those, what we call appetizer songs, where it's okay. Like, it was okay. Yeah, it's not a main course song. It's like, it's okay. It's not bad.
we usually liked what we had.
Yeah, but we'd written like one or two things, like ditties, like things that were
Pop tunes.
And you came to Chicago for like a weekend, stayed at my house. We hung out, we had dinner, and we were gonna write the next day. We're like, let's see what happens. and here's my recollection, so jump in if I'm telling it wrong. The night before, you had shared a story with me about one of your kids, about your son, Cody.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, you were estranged from each other.
Yeah.
Which was heartbreaking for you and heartbreaking for me. My sons were little at the time, and even the thought of it was so, like, heartbreaking for me. And you were very forthcoming about it, and it was an emotional conversation, I remember.
Yeah.
Because you were really hurting. So anyway, we wrapped up, and you went to bed. The next morning, I made coffee. I think I left a note, hey, there's coffee. I'm down the hall at the studio. And I was just playing the piano. I was just noodling around on the piano, and you walked in with your coffee, and you immediately went, whoa, what is that? What is that? I like that. What is that? What did you play that again? Mm-hmm. So I didn't, kind of remember. Then we started humming and singing. And
well, it was, to my recollection, you were already playing the melodic passage that would become the chorus of that song.
Right. And without a word, without a lyric, I remember you looked at me and you went, I need to write this about Cody. Like the music said to you, oh, this is
the one we were talking about.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, pressure. That's a lot of, shit. But I was like, wow, okay, great. So that I think we dove in and we had the music really quickly.
Yeah. That's courageous of you, because I've written with writers who only want to write hits.
Oh.
And veering.
Oh, I'd written so many at this point. I was like, well,
yeah, what's another? I can kill the day. Yeah. Waste a little time with Kenny.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. But yes, It was like, it wasn't about that.
No.
It was about telling the truth.
Yeah.
It was about
writing
saying something that needed to be said.
Maybe somebody will, react in a important way to.
And that was a lesson which I'll talk about in a second. But so we finished the music pretty quickly, and then we dove into really trying to tell the story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying, we're going to come up with lines that are really good, but they're not going to be the right lines. And I want to make sure you're okay with, like, we're going to be throwing good stuff out if it isn't really the truth, if it's not really, really accurate. I was like, okay. And it was like a day-long therapy session. And I remember multiple times saying words back and forth, lines, trying to find that thing in the lyric, and it would hit you in a way, and you would catch your breath, or you would get teary-eyed. And we both cried through this whole fucking thing. It was so ridiculous. Like, I'd never experienced anything like it.
Yeah.
And I remember we finally finished it. And it was like, we were both like this.
Exhausted.
And I remember I looked at you and I said, now you get to sing it.
It took a year.
And I did a little piano track, and you went into the vocal booth that night. We had dinner, and then you said, let's try and record this just so we have a really good work tape of it. And I recorded this piano track, put some strings on it, and you got behind the microphone. And the opening line of the song is, you were the quiet one, afraid to sleep alone. That's the opening line of the song. And Kenny goes out, in the intro, my piano plays, and he goes, you were the quiet, and you started crying. You didn't even get 3 words in. And I was like, it's okay. And you went, sorry. And I was like, it's okay, buddy. And then it took hours, because you would have just sung it like that. But it was an experience unlike I've ever had as a songwriter. And when people have asked me, those sort of stock questions, like, if you had to put a song of yours in a time capsule, or, of all the songs I've written by myself, for my own personal reasons, that song, the one that got away that I wrote with you, is in that group of the most precious songs to me, because you have to tell the back end of the story after we wrote the song.
Which back end?
When you took it to him.
Yeah, I realized that once I could actually sing it all the way through, I couldn't really sing it live in concert until I played it for Cody and got his permission, because he would know. No, I never said his name in the song, but he would know it was about him. And so he, out of the blue, decided to come on the road and work on my crew one summer. So he came out for most of the summer, and it was the second or third show that he was helping set up the stage. And I said, I have to show you something. I took him to the rental car and played him our recording of the one that got away and asked his permission. And he was okay with it. So I performed it for a while during that tour.
Yeah. Well, I look at that as, as a tool in healing your relationship with him, or that went a long way to doing that, where you got to, and I think it
made a huge difference for quite a while.
Yeah. But like once in a while, when you write a song that is that impactful, that is not necessarily to the world, but to the person that you wrote the song about. That's why that song, aside from I think it's just a really quality song, my relationship to that song and to your relationship with Cody is it's one of my favorite things.
Thank you. Yeah. And you and I played it at the at my final concert in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
And Cody came up to me afterwards and said, thank me again for it. And he said, but Dad, you were the one that got away.
Oh, he really did say that? Wow. Wow. That's fucking heavy. I mean...
we choose these lives.
Yeah.
Something in us makes us follow this spark, this thing, that we need to chase after as songwriters, as performers. And it invariably takes you away from your family.
Yeah.
It just has to, unless you reach a stratospheric level where you can afford to take your family with you everywhere you go. But that doesn't often happen.
Right.
And I always told myself that I was setting the example of hard work and setting the example of, if you try, you can do this, right?
Yeah.
There are other examples that we were setting, that I was setting, that are not as lofty as those, which is, nothing's more important to me than my career.
Yeah.
Not necessarily true, but certainly an example that our kids can take from what we do. And then you pay the price for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always admired your relationship with your kids, because you always seem to have such a close relationship, and you do make the time for them. And I know during the 80s, I was very consumed with that ladder, catch the next rung on the ladder. What do I do now? What do I do now? Let's keep going. I was driven. Like every successful artist I know was driven to some degree or another.
Of course.
They didn't just walk in backwards. And, over the years, I have paid a price for that.
I have a theory about this. And this is, you and I have had so many conversations about our kids, where you've really been helpful to me, and I think I've been helpful to you, because one of the things that we really bond over is our intense desire to have the best relationship with our offspring that we possibly can. But one of the things that I struggled with is this, I guess it's a combination of guilt for being away, even if you're not physically away, when your head is in making a record or writing, or you doing you. Like, I don't think, this sounds so harsh, and I hope it doesn't come across as harsh as it sounds when I say it.
Say it in French.
Mon fils.
That sounds better.
Yeah. My sons, I have 3 sons, they are the most important thing in the world to me. And I'm beyond, there's no way I could describe how grateful I am to be their dad. But if you asked me, was I put here on earth to be their dad? Well, clearly I was, but I think I was also put here on earth to do what I do, because nothing has given me the joy and the feeling of making music, whether it's performing or writing or just listening back to something, to a record through that is heroin for me. It's always been heroin for me, and I know for you too. And it's this classic battle between our vocation, our passion for what we do, but also our responsibility, which sometimes is a reluctant responsibility to a family. Sometimes it's like, I gotta take my fucking kids to school versus I need to go tour, but I really, that battle, I saw it hurt you. I saw the conflict. I saw the pain of the conflict. And then when it happened to me, you know, because I'm younger than you, but I caught up with it, I felt it in me. I felt a guilt and a pain of conflict. It's a topic that doesn't get discussed much. There's a line in our song actually that's making me talk about nailing it. How do we catch up? Is there just too much stolen history? In your case, unlike mine at the time, what was augmenting that was a divorce.
Yeah.
So, you know, by the time I got divorced, my sons were grown. I don't think that my youngest son said he felt a little abandoned by me when.
Have you had this conversation with each of them?
Oh, yeah, many times.
But I just recently wrote a new song.
Without me?
Without you. Fuck. It's really, really good.
I feel like I really broke through the way you were keeping me down.
It's again with Michael McDonald, but this time it's with Charlie Puth.
Oh yeah, you texted me about that.
And you know, I'm not getting paid to do it or anything. Don't have those dollar signs floating in my head. But I love the idea. I will confess, I love the idea of having a new song, maybe see some action at whatever radio is now, streaming.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it lit that sparking, and it was like, oh, I can still do this, and I love to do it. When you find that idea becomes a solid thing that you can then play in the car. Yeah. You know, it's a thrilling thing.
How did that collaboration happen? I mean, obviously you and Michael go back forever.
Charlie called me out of the blue.
Really?
Yeah. And said, you know, would you sing on my new record? He sent me a track. And I said, sure, yeah. I was listening to it, and I said, you know what would be interesting is if we write something. And where that comes from is a lesson I learned by inviting Michael Jackson to come sing on my record.
On the Keep the Fire album.
Yeah, Who's Right, Who's Wrong.
Who's Right, Who's Wrong.
Yeah. And I should have written with him. I wasn't as aware of what a strong writer he was at the time.
Because that was right around Off the Wall time, right?
It was right at the beginning. I knew he was great, but I didn't know he was that great. I didn't know it was Michael fucking Jackson.
Well, I want to come back to the Charlie Puth song in a second, but I don't think I know, because Michael Jackson's so prominently featured on that song, Who's Right, Who's Wrong. How did that happen? And because at the time, he wasn't yet. He was kind of like in a awkward stage,
just
right?
breaking through. Well, I heard his. What was the first solo album called? His first one?
The Off the Wall album?
Was it Off the Wall?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he made solo albums before that were. Well, but the one with Quincy, you mean?
He and I had a friendship already, so it must have been through the music. I can't remember why, but he invited me and Eva to his album listening party.
You want to come to my album listening party?
Yeah, and it was Off the Wall, and so we listened to it, and then I loved it. And while I was there, I said, "Would you sing on my record? I'm working on a record." He said, "Yeah, of course." So he came in.
Wait, he was Chewbacca at that point?
And but I brought
so
him
he
in. was.
So okay, now I got my chronology.
Because of that, I asked him to, sing on the record.
Yeah.
And then he shows up, and I realized I didn't have the right kind of song for his voice, and he was singing "Who's Right, Who's Wrong," which my falsetto barely comes out now, and it was very smooth and soft, and I thought, Michael, can you put more soul thing on that? Can you put your edge? And he said, oh, you want it more stanky? I didn't realize that he had that nickname.
Yeah.
It was Stinky, right?
Smelly.
Smelly?
I think Quincy called him Smelly.
You want more smelly?
You want more smelly?
And so I said, yeah, more smelly. And he did.
So wait,
And
so
he-
you just had him, you just wanted, at the time, you just asked him because you thought
I
it'd be
just
cool
wanted-
to have Michael Jackson on the album.
to have his voice, yeah.
Yeah.
And then as I got to know his music, I realized I wasn't really utilizing that voice as best as I could.
It's really cool because the chorus of that song is basically him and you answer him.
Yeah.
I met him once right after Thriller came out. And so the first single of Thriller was Billie Jean. It blew up. He was, off to the races. And then Beat It came out as the second single right when the album came out. And I was doing background vocals at Westlake Studios in Hollywood, where he recorded everything. And it was a weekend. I remember, and I think I was singing on something for Quincy. But no one was there. Like, it was just a handful of people.
Huh.
The hallways were empty, and it was just the one room that was being used. And they weren't ready for me, so I was just walking in the hallways, walking around, just killing time, because there was no phone to look at or anything, right? And I start to come around this corner, and I hear this voice on the studio phone going, "Then what'd he say? Then what'd you say?" And I'm thinking, and I come around the corner, and it's Michael Jackson. And he sees me, and he's startled, and I was like, "Oh, sorry." And I was like, "Oh, I can't believe it's like," he was the biggest star on the planet, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, at least I got a glimpse of him. And I go into the studio, and I'm sitting here, and he comes in and sits down, and he sees me, and now he realizes that I'm not gonna hurt him because I'm part of the session. And he sits down, he goes, "Sorry, I didn't know who you were. I'm Michael." And "Oh, so great to meet you." And he's sitting there, and I said, "By the way, I really love Beat It. It's so good." And he looked at me and goes, "You really like it?" I swear
So
this
you're
is
the one that
true.
made him keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he would have given up.
But I couldn't believe he actually said, "You really like it?" I want to talk about your relationship to songwriting because you're unique in that some of the songs that you're best known for, you wrote when you were a fucking teenager.
Yeah.
How old were you when you wrote Pooh Corner and Danny's song? And
17.
gee, I mean, come on, man. That's like 60 years ago.
Don't say that.
No,
out
but I mean,
loud.
think about it.
Well, I'll try a little fella. Stick with me.
That's good. That's a good impression of you now.
Yeah, it feels like
Dude,
it.
like, think about 60 years and it's still on the radio. It's you. I mean, you're not touring anymore
I'm not.
so far, and we'll talk about that. But
Depends on how much more shit we buy.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, you can always go back on. Do a little limited.
Yeah.
Never say never.
The final tour again.
Yeah, exactly. How do you come up with that at 17?
I have no idea. Well, Danny's song was inspired by Tim Hardin.
Okay.
If you think about Lady came from Baltimore, that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or, of course, the audience would know, if I were a carpenter, you were a lady.
Right.
So you can feel the similarities, but you don't hear them in the changes or anything.
No.
It's just I went into that space that I feel when I listen to Tim Hardin, and Pooh just came out of nowhere, so to speak. I wanted to
There's
call
our soundbite.
I wanted to call the greatest hits 30 Years of Pooh.
More. I remember you did an album, House of Pooh Corner Revisited or something. I said, why don't you just call it More Pooh?
I did. There was Return to Pooh Corner.
Yeah.
And then the next one was more songs from Pooh Corner.
Yeah, that's when I said, I think I texted
What
you.
I
and
had
said,
to.
why don't you just say, here's some more Pooh?
More Pooh Pooh.
But how many songs had you written at the time you wrote those songs? So you wrote them very close together, right?
I would write, like I was 17, I wrote a song a day. Most of it was not so good. But it was, finding my voice, finding my chops, finding what moved me. And I was very folky then, and that's what led me to Jimmy Messina.
Right.
Was the folkier sort of pseudo-country thing.
How many years between you writing Danny's song, for example, and you meeting Jimmy and then recording it with Loggins and Messina? How many years?
3.
Okay. So you were 20.
Yeah, 2021.
How did that go down when you played Jimmy Messina a song that great and he found out you wrote it when you were 17?
Probably didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because you were probably, at the time, you were probably embarrassed that you were that young, right? Now you can look back and go, I fucking wrote that when I was 17.
yeah.
But
So
at the
shut up.
time, you're probably, but at the time, you're probably like, you don't want anybody to know that you were 17 when you wrote it.
Yeah, but probably. It was just, I just knew it was the best song I had by the reaction I would get when I would play it. It would always get me laid.
Is that what it was?
That's what I was trying to say.
I don't think that that's true. Although I know enough about you, and you wrote a really good memoir a couple years ago. Year ago? 2 years ago?
If you think it's a year, it was 2. Yeah.
Oh. There were a bunch of things that I didn't know about you, but I feel like so many people, your singing and songwriting and playing was your exit strategy from the life you knew then when you were in high school. Like, you were not going to conform to what everybody else was doing around you. And then it was like you were ready to be an adventurer.
It was the music.
Yeah.
I just had to go where the music was. When I was in college, city college, because I didn't bother trying to get into a college.
Because you knew
I didn't even take the SATs.
Oh, yeah.
I just was in city college killing time until something would come up, and I got a call from a buddy of mine who was reforming a psychedelic rock band called the Electric Prunes. And he said, we're going to go on the road. Do you want to come along? And I said, yeah. And I went in the office, quit school, and drove out to North Hollywood that day.
And then just started writing songs.
Well, no, I'd been writing, but because I had my own rock and roll band. I had a Chevy station wagon that I carried the PA in.
Right.
I would set it up and tear it down.
Right.
I was that guy.
Right.
And
what are those
I read
gigs?
somewhere Pete Townsend was that guy in The Who.
Yeah, there's always somebody like that.
One of the guys in the band is going to set it up and tear it down.
Yeah.
Until you make a friend who's willing to help.
Yeah. But what kind of gigs are you doing with the Electric Prunes?
Their manager still owned the name. So he was sending the new Electric Prunes out to fulfill obligations that he'd...
Wait, Electric Prunes was a thing? They had a
They
following?
had hit records.
Wow.
They had a hit called I Had Too Much to Dream last night, and one other that I can't recall. But we didn't have to do any of those songs. We did, mostly Jeremy Stewart was the keyboard player who they'd hired to reform the group. And we actually went on the road. We had to fulfill the tour, which was already booked, without a drummer, because we'd been auditioning drummers and Jeremy didn't feel we'd met the right guy. We did meet the right guy, but he couldn't do the tour. So we thought, well, what are we going to do? And the manager said, well, you have to fulfill this obligation with or without a drummer. So we went on the road without a drummer. At the first place we went to, we wore black armbands and told them that this was a memorial tour for a recently deceased drummer.
Oh my God, it's
that
genius.
didn't put people into a better mood.
No, but it's a genius cop-out. It's a great way out.
Yeah. Imagine, if you will, oompa, oompa.
Yeah.
And that was not good. It was the first time that I experienced bombing, that...
How many people are you playing to?
But it was Jeremy's idea that I would get up alone in the middle of the show. We'd do about 3 or 4 of his songs. Then I'd get up alone on acoustic guitar and sing Danny's song in House of Pooh Corner. And then I'd watch people get up and leave.
Really?
Because Electric Prunes was a psychedelic rock band. That's who they'd bought the ticket for. We weren't doing Electric Prunes music. And now we're doing folk music.
Yeah.
They were like,
Yeah. Even though we ain't fuck this. Wow.
yeah. So it was an
humbling.
experience that took me about 2 years to get over.
Yeah.
Up to that point, I'd never experienced people getting up and walking out on me. And so that was like, there's something that happens to your brain when that happens, like, oh, that can happen.
Yeah.
Am I sucking or what? I hadn't yet figured out that you have to be in the right place at the right time.
Right.
That's why I protect Hunter so much. I want Hunter to go into the right room with the right expectations so she can fulfill them.
Yeah.
But that's for another interview.
Yeah. But it speaks to your mentoring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those early gigs, if they go bad, it can damage somebody who might otherwise
Well,
become...
when the first Loggins and Messina shows started to get closer and closer, I couldn't sleep. I would wake up wringing wet
just scared
with
to
the
go out.
nightmare of going out there and bombing. And Jimmy had structured the set where I open alone and go out and sing Danny's song in House Pool Corner alone. So talk about PTSD, reliving the magic moment.
Wow.
And it was scary for me.
Do you remember the first gig?
The first real gig was the Troubadour. And Clive Davis got us that gig by, he had a relationship with Doug Weston. And
The owner of the Troubadour.
the headliner, the opening act for the headliner was Curtis Mayfield. And the opening act had dropped out at the last minute. And so Clive talked Doug Weston into hiring an unknown act, Loggins and Messina. Since we were such stalwarts of R&B, we would go in there. So it was an entirely black audience for Curtis Mayfield, who was iconic in that genre. And I remember I went up on stage and alone and started singing Danny's song in House Pool Corner, and there were a couple of beautiful girls in the front row, and they were looking up at me going, "Get down, get down." And so I would go, "Oh, they like it. Okay, I'm doing better."
They were like, no, get down, get off the stage.
That's what they were saying.
Oh, no, seriously?
Seriously. Jimmy came up to me later and he said, "How did you do that?" He said, "Man, they were telling you to get off the stage. You just got better and better." Not knowing helps.
Oh, my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't
A fun memory.
Don't you feel like, because you and I have had a lot of personal conversations about our favorite topic, manifestation. What dots do you connect from those days to what your career became? When you were in the Electric Prunes, or even when you were writing in high school, Danny's song and Pooh Corner, when you, even in the beginning of you and Jimmy Messina, were you picturing what became? Did you make it happen, or do you think it just evolved in some other way?
What do you mean?
I don't know that you consciously were pointing yourself in that direction.
The only thing I was conscious of, I used to say rock and roll is a high turnover business. Because if you listen to the radio, they're not playing the same songs they'll be playing in 2 weeks.
Right.
At least in those days.
Now more than ever, yeah.
And so I knew that someday I would get my turn, I would get a shot at it. I didn't know what that would look like. I didn't know, but I knew that I had to be ready. So I just worked at it, playing the guitar, singing with other people, getting a sense of what's out there and what I can do. And
no, I understand that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about
the manifestation part of it. Yeah. I think that had to do with the manifestation of it was knowing that I'd get a shot. I knew I would get a shot. I didn't think maybe someday. It was like one of these days I'm going to get a shot at something, and then I'm going to get my turn. I wasn't sure what that would be or how long it would get or anything like that.
Did you want to be a star?
No, never thought about that.
Really?
Yeah.
So what did it mean? What did success look like in your mind at that time? You're really honest. You didn't want to be famous.
It wasn't a thing for me. It wasn't a driving force.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine I thought that could be cool, but it wasn't like the thing. I just wanted maybe to get on a radio or something like that, to write a hit song or sing a hit song. Mm-hmm. And I really relied a lot on my voice. I knew I was getting stronger and stronger vocally. And I wasn't sure where that would take me.
Did you have a sense, even in the early days, that you sang differently than everybody else?
Not so much. I was trying. My vocal mentors who didn't know it.
Yeah.
Steve Winwood was a voice that I imitated, and conversely, Leon Russell was a voice that I imitated.
Oh, yeah.
So if you listen to Long Tail Cat from the first Loggins and Messina record, Long Tail Cat,
yeah,
I'm doing Leon.
Right.
But I think that, and I have a feeling you and I have that in common, we could mimic or imitate certain voices successfully. And when I met Steve Perry and I sang Don't Fight It with Steve Perry, in between takes, we were both on separate microphones, but singing live at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
In between takes, he would just go into an imitation of somebody. And all of a sudden, Sam Cooke is in the other room.
Right.
Or he did the most perfect imitation of Rod Stewart I've ever heard.
Really?
Yeah. I was shocked, you know. I thought Steve was Steve.
Right.
And
Well, you hear Sam Cooke like he's
all the time.
all
yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He knew those licks would work.
Dude, when you did that song with Steve Perry, it was the album after Keep the Fire, but in between you did Caddyshack. And I remember that was a big part of that. Those 3 or 4 years of your career were really important to me as a fan, because I was like, okay, this is it. Keep the Fire. Who's right, who's wrong? What else is on? There were a couple of ballads, but it was mostly like This Is It was such a unique, still to this day. There's no song, there's no record that sounds like This Is It. It's a hybrid of so many different things, right?
Yeah, those influences that they now call yacht rock were starting to come in.
Yeah. But it's its own animal. But I remember I just becoming obsessed with that album. And then you always wonder what's going to happen next. And like a year later, you hit I'm All Right. You come out with I'm All Right. And the other song on that album, which nobody ever talks about, which is Lead the Way, which is a ballad, this beautiful orchestral ballad.
That came from a meeting that I had with Barbra Streisand.
Lead the Way?
Yeah.
Really?
Where she was looking for songs for Stars Born.
Oh, right.
And I went to her house.
Which you wrote a song in Stars Born.
Yeah. I Believe in Love. And that was an idea that I was working on for my Celebrate Me Home, what album that would become Celebrate Me Home. And so because I had so many startup ideas for that album, when I met with her, it was perfect time. I just showed her all my startup ideas, and Lead the Way was I had this little refrain that I used. You know, I was finally using major 7 chords as a writing thing.
Yeah, because they were like square, right? At the time, they were like,
it was a whole new idea. It was musically, folk music never used a major 7. Country didn't use that. All of a sudden, I found all these 9s and 7s and things that were like so cool. And how do I do that? And then gradually, my imagination went beyond my ability to play. So I started writing with keyboard guys.
Yeah.
And but Lead the Way was a song that I wrote for my wedding. And Jimmy Webb played it at my wedding.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
He happened to be there.
Wow.
Literally, he happened to be there.
Oh, you didn't invite him?
No, he lived there.
Oh, what? I thought you were like, yeah, I was friends with Jimmy Webb at that point.
Yeah, and one of the girls in the wedding was Eva's best friend, was Jimmy's wife.
Oh.
And I said, well, where's Jimmy? He's asleep up in the house. So I went up, I knocked on his door. Dude, I need your help.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, those were funny days.
Okay, so Lead the Way, I'm All Right, and then you come to High Adventure, and the first single was Don't Fight It. It was the duet with Steve Perry, right?
Yeah, and I've got a good story around that.
Go.
Oh, well.
Because when I heard because I was a huge Journey fan too, and so really at that time, 1982, my 2 favorite singers in the world are Kenny Loggins and Steve Perry, and then I hear, oh, guess who teamed up?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, is that going to work?
I know.
You know?
Did it?
Because you had teased.
What'd you think, man?
No, you had. Did you really like it?
Did you like it?
You had like dabbled in harder rock with Love's Come of Age. That's the opening track of Keep the Fire. I still love that song. And that's a proper rocker. Mm-hmm. I'm All Right's a rocker.
Come of Age in my imagination was a Stevie Wonder tune.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
It's higher ground. It's a higher ground vibe.
It's that era.
I totally hear that.
Yeah.
But then Don't Fight It, which is probably the hardest rock song up to that point that you had done, right? Mm-hmm. So what's the story?
I met Steve Perry at a show that Loggins and Messina it was my solo act. It was early in my Celebrate Me Home tour. And I was on a bill with Journey. And it was before and after they played that I met Steve, and we hit it off immediately. And so he said, let's get together and write. I didn't know that he was working on a solo album.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got together, but I thought, oh, this is an opportunity for me to write some rock and roll and to really dig in and do that thing that I confessed in my book that as a kid, I really wanted to be in The Who.
Yeah.
And so that was like coming closer to that dream of being a rock and roll guy.
Yeah.
And so we came over to the house and we messed around with things. We didn't really find anything that hooked in until we started doing old blues stuff together.
Did he play? Does he play anything? I've never seen. I know
don't
he plays
remember.
drums a little bit, but I've never seen him hold a guitar.
I don't think he did.
So maybe you played and he
probably
just sang.
we were just going around 3-chord stuff.
Right.
And Don't Fight is basically a 3-chord tune.
Yeah.
And we got into this groove, and all of a sudden we both related. Oh, we know where this is coming from. Let's write this.
Right.
And then my producer, Bruce Botnick, had access to the Paramount vault, the movie vault. And he snuck in and got the sound of the whip from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so the whip sound on Don't Fight It.
That's what that is?
From Raiders. Yeah.
To this day, how come you've never told me that? Of all the things you've told me.
Slipped my mind.
Dude, because I've always wondered, it's out of the breakdown, right? It's going back into the full band chorus, right?
Into the guitar solo.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah. And that's Neil Giraldo.
Yeah, Neil Giraldo. And you didn't have to pay Steven Spielberg anything or Harrison Ford.
Shh.
I mean, not yet.
Statute of limitations, dude.
So how was the singing with Steve Perry?
Oh, it was such a joy. He's so good. And we just riffed off each other until we found a form that worked.
So how much of the song evolved in the studio versus what the actual song sitting around playing the guitar? And
It didn't evolve all that much. I mean, there wasn't much to it. You know, it was these chords in this fashion. And I brought in Neil, who I'd never met before, but I heard I could tell from his records he was a great guitarist.
great guitar player.
He's really one of the rock god guitar players of the time.
Totally.
He set up, it was like inviting James Dean
Yeah.
in to play guitar. He just had that hairdo and the whole thing, the cigarettes rolled up in the short sleeve shirt. He's pacing the room with his cigarette tucked in the headstock of his guitar, like, Keith Richards.
Yeah.
He just comes up, just came up with that thing, and then everything he did was right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is how you make a rock and roll song.
Neil Giraldo, by the way, is the husband of the great Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
So that album is, to me, maybe in a short list of 5 or 6 albums from my taste it's a completely perfect album for me.
Oh, wow, thank you.
I love Keep the Fire, but High Adventure to me is like, there's not one song. For like the first 10 listens, the only song that had to grow on me was Imagination that you wrote with Tom Snow.
Right.
This must be imagination.
Was that Tom or was that Rich?
Tom Snow.
Oh, yeah?
I love it. I love it. I'm telling you who wrote the songs with you on your album.
Because I have no memory left.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget how old you are.
No. I don't think it was Tom.
Do I need to Google this shit?
Yeah, I think it was Max
Gronenthal? You mean Max Carl, who sang with 38 Special?
38 Special.
Now we're going to nerd out.
He came over to the house and auditioned for Loggins and Messina. When I met him, he was auditioning for the keyboard role in Loggins and Messina. Jimmy didn't like him.
He toured with me for a couple of years. He's one of the greatest singers on the planet.
Yeah.
And an incredible keyboard player. He's the guy that sings, "When love makes a sound, babe, a heart needs a second chance." All right. If only there were...
Which he's doing... What is he doing? He's doing Steve fucking Perry.
Right.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
If only there were a portal of some kind, an information portal where I could look up
Try your
album,
phone. I mean,
High
just for the hell of
Adventure.
it.
This is going to be great because I know I'm right.
Why don't you do this after we're done?
Nope, I'm doing it now. Because I had a guest recently. Here's the thing.
I swear to God,
here's
it
the
was
thing,
Max.
viewers.
I'm going to put $100 on the table right now.
Oh, are we betting $100?
We're betting $100.
That Tom Snow didn't write
Max Gronethal.
Must Be Imagination?
Yeah.
Viewers, every once in a while when you have a guest who's obstinate, who's just a little bit, just a little
Conceited.
And like
Self-absorbed.
let's see what we have here. Oh, look.
Ask
High
my
Adventure
kids,
is
I'll
the
tell
fourth
you.
studio album by American singer-songwriter Kenny Loggins. Let's look at the track listing, shall we? Track listing. Don't Fight It. Welcome to Heart Light. I Gotta Try. Swear Your Love. The More We Try. Heart to Heart. If It's Not What You're Looking For, which is such a great song.
Yeah, I love that song.
It Must Be Imagination. Holy shit.
Tom Snow, is
We're
it?
both right.
Was both of them?
Written by Kenny Loggins, Tom Snow, and Max Gronenthal.
But wait, you're both right.
It says that right there. We're both right and we're both wrong.
Who's right, who's wrong?
Who's right, who's wrong?
So my story. I want to give you my story.
Yes, go.
So I just finished the duet with Steve, and I was very proud of it, very excited about it. We're in Ocean Way Studios with the huge speakers,
Yeah.
and in walks Burt Bacharach and Carol Bayer-Sager. I'd never met them before, so it was an honor for me as a songwriter and fan. It was an honor to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in and shakes my hand. I have something to show you. We've written a song for you. Oh, really? Now, you have to understand. Oh, well, I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to do it. So we go to the piano in the studio. Bert sits down, and they together sing.
That's what friends are for.
That's what friends are for. He said, I wrote this for you. He probably wrote this for whoever was in the room.
I knew Bert, he didn't bullshit.
Yeah?
If he said he wrote it for you, he probably wrote it for you.
He plays it for me, and I said, I don't hear it. And so, but let me play you what I'm doing now. And I played the
Don't Fight
It
I can
on
see.
10, it's like louder than fuck.
And Bert's like,
I know. He's trying, he's so polite,
Yeah.
he's trying to get through it. And right after that, they leave. Thanks, we'll leave now. They can't hear.
right.
And months later, That's What Friends Are For wins the Grammy for Song of the Year. And Bert takes the Grammy and looks at me and kind of winks like, fuck you.
Nice.
Yeah,
I love it.
fuck you very much.
Yeah. But didn't you guys win a Grammy for Don't Fight It?
No,
Well, you're nominated, I bet.
no.
Don't make me look that up too. Because I will.
I think Max Gronethal was nominated that year.
Max Gronenthal. If I had a nickel for every time I did an interview where Max Gronenthal's name came up, I'd now have a nickel. No, he's an incredibly talented guy.
That rock stardom passed him by.
Well,
That's the whole show. You should have him and Bill Champlin and the people who should have been fucking rock stars.
oh yeah, that sounds like a fun episode. Yeah, let's have a bunch of guys who are bitter about the fact.
Bitter about their lives.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
Who hated you, by the way?
Your turn. No,
Because
your
you
turn.
made it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm gonna.
Oh, well.
Let's see. I mean, if
We're
we,
coming up with great new ideas
if
for
it,
this.
if it gets really tough
I'm
to
trying to
find guests.
destroy his podcast.
You know what you should do, Richard?
I can't believe you did that show with those people that I told you about. And you did it. You fucking idiot.
Dude, I was thinking today, knowing you were coming over, in the last 2 years, you retired from touring and became a newlywed.
Well, I had to do something.
But I mean, isn't that interesting timing?
I was so bored.
No.
What the fuck? Let's get married.
No, you found someone who made everything make sense, and you were like, I just want to spend my time with her.
That's it. That's it.
Her.
Yeah, that's a ticket.
Yeah, that's it. He said with his spouse right over there.
Now we have to turn the camera and get her quick. She's
She'll be
smiling
she'll be in the
authentically.
shot.
Well, you look at your life and you go, okay. I was kind of twice burned, having having 2 marriages, it's kind of ridiculous because I know better, but I knew that I didn't want to go through that pain again.
Yeah.
And then I met Lisa, and I was in love, and I said, okay, dude, to myself, you have a choice. You can either run from this or you can run towards it. And so a long time ago, I made a promise to myself that I would follow my heart. And there it was. And I thought, okay, my heart has maybe made some mistakes along the way, but...
Yeah, but it's corny, but it's really accurate. You got to love like you've never been hurt, right? Yeah.
I was a beginner again.
I see this, and I really like it. I'm a little protective of you, actually.
Oh, thank you. Is that why you have that gun in the hallway?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I could tell, like, especially the first, as you were getting closer and you were confiding in me a little bit about the relationship and about how you were like, I really, this woman's in my life now, and I like it. I like it. It looks good on you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. She looks good on you.
Yeah.
You referenced the last show at the Santa Barbara Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
We did a show. You did a big tour leading up to that. Like you did a farewell tour.
A real tour.
Which I had the great pleasure of doing one of the shows with you. I opened for you in California somewhere. Mm-hmm. And we sat in with each other. And then you said, hey, I really would love you to be at the last show, which meant, here's my manifestation story. Hmm. And I don't think I think maybe we did. We had dinner just a few nights after the show in Santa Barbara. You guys came here for something, and Daisy and Lisa, we went out to dinner, and we kind of did a post-mortem on the show, on your last show. And I think maybe I mentioned this. Lisa will remember, or Daisy would remember. But in case I didn't say this at the dinner, I don't feel like I said it to you. Imagine for me meeting you at 19, knowing every word and every lyric and every vocal turn, studying you as a writer, as a singer, as a producer, all of those things, all those talents you have. At 19, and being like, when people would say to me, who's your favorite singer? I'd go, Kenny Loggins. Imagine what it's like for me to have been at your your farewell show at Santa Barbara. For me to have been on that stage, there were some really wonderful people on that stage. It wasn't like it was a small list, but it was like, I was there because you said, I would love you to do the song we wrote together.
Yeah.
If that's not the most powerful manifestation, I just want to thank you, because it was, and it's a real testament to our friendship, but it was like, that's what, how did that happen? I asked myself all day.
As Bert would say,
that's what friends are for. I knew you'd have to. I knew you'd have to shit on it. I knew you would.
No, it's underlining it.
Yes. Daisy, that whole day in Santa Barbara, especially when we were watching the show before I went out, we were on the side watching, and the love for you in that room, in that Santa Barbara Bowl, was overwhelming. It was really beautiful to watch.
It was palpable.
Yeah, it was palpable, and you were killing it. And I knew that I was like, I don't really get nervous that much anymore, but I was nervous about coming out, and
because you knew you could totally fuck it up.
Yes, yes, I was aware, like, I could fuck this up.
I have to say, being your buddy, you didn't fuck it up.
I didn't fuck it up, but I was nervous, but I was also sort of like really trying to be present, really trying to be in the moment, and and take myself out of being nervous about playing piano and singing with you.
What am I going to do? Get out of that. You got to get out of that.
Just be here. Watch. And I loved the show. But a couple times, Daisy just put her arm around me, and she was like, you can't believe this is happening, can you? And I was like, I can't fucking believe it. I can't believe it. So it was really powerful for me.
And everything worked. And that song, our song, I hate to belabor this point, but we'll do it anyway. It really worked. It was the best it's ever been.
Yeah, it was. I think so too. It was the best we've ever performed it together.
And I think if that song is going to have an additional life, it's going to come out of that show that we filmed and made into a special of some kind.
Yeah.
It's not really a documentary. It's a documentary of that show.
Can you tell me what was going on with you like the morning of the show? When you woke up and you thought, oh, tonight's the last show.
I was so ready.
Really?
Yeah, I was so ready. It was not bittersweet for me. I was completely in it. It was emotional in a great way. I knew that this was going to be a moment I'd been waiting for all year long, at least.
Yeah. So there was no melancholy to it? It was just exciting?
No,
You were just excited.
there was none. I know with other artists in that situation there might be. But for me, it was just really exciting. I fabricated a show.
Let me interrupt you again.
Thank you. Yeah. That I knew I had to stay focused on in order for it to work.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Well, you had some moving parts with guests and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I noticed that too at soundcheck. You were doing your typical thing. You were like making little subtle changes. You were, let's move to that. Let's not do, like, you were just sort of in charge. And I didn't get a sense that you were taking in the weight of what it was. It was not that it was just another gig, but that it wasn't going to be this thing where you were going to, cry your way through it, or it was just it was a celebration.
Celebration.
It was really a celebration. Yeah. How was the next day?
The next day was a party at my house with the band and crew.
Yeah.
And that was an extension of the celebration. So much gratitude. These guys, to go through the whole year and to have great relationships with all of them and really consider them my closest friends.
Yeah.
It was important to me that I maintain that friendship. The hardest part was getting off the road. All those guys go to their respective homes and you don't see them again for a long time.
Right.
And it's sort of like probably graduating from college or something, where all your friends, almost all of them, just go off into the world and become who they're going to become.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to stay connected with the guys. Like army buddies or something, we've been through a lot together.
Are they almost all local Santa Barbarian?
Well, no, Scott's, Nashville.
Oh, right.
There's a couple of Nashville guys, Chris Rodriguez.
Right.
Then Rick Cowling, who's an amazing singer-songwriter in L.A.
Yeah.
And the rest of the guys are in L.A.
Do you feel like you're going to go back and do more, or do you think you're really done in terms of touring?
I really think I'm done. I think I've been reading a book. Here we go. I've been reading a book called From Strength to Strength. And it talks about...
You sent it to me.
Oh, yeah. And it talks about the differing intelligences that we have as we grow. When we're younger, we have what they call a fluid intelligence, which is what we did. We would write songs out of nowhere. We would create things, period.
Yeah.
And then once you get older, it's less likely that you're going to be creating things. You're going to be what's called crystallized intelligence, which is the experiences that we have over our lifetime and how we utilize those experiences into a source of knowledge. The writer uses the old joke, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad.
Right. Right. That's great.
The crystallized intelligence is wisdom. It's learned from experience.
Yeah.
And I find that now as a mentor of young artists, I can bring that to the table. The one thing I'm learning about is mentoring is an art unto itself. I'm not trying to turn the writers and performers that I work with into little mini-me's. I'm trying to help them become better at who they are.
Yeah, that's the best kind of mentoring.
That's challenging because in today's music, they don't write verse, bridge, chorus music ever.
There's no bridge anymore.
Yeah, well, we wrote one for Charlie. We actually did it consciously. We were writing, and we had an idea, little verse thing came through, and I said, and then he changed it a little, and I said, that's the bridge.
Anyway, what's a bridge?
Yeah, right. Like, what? And I said, yeah, this song should have a bridge because you want to make an 80s sounding record.
Yeah, they all had a bridge.
We have to write a bridge.
I used to love that was my favorite part, was coming up with a bridge. And some of my favorite things I've ever written are bridges to my songs. And you wrote great
And
bridges,
middle
too.
eights, that's one of his songs, by the way.
That's actually a pre-chorus.
That is every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
that's the
mistake.
pre-chorus.
Delete that.
Yeah. The bridge is, I wonder how we can survive this romance, but in the end, if I'm with you, I'll take the chance. Just like one of a bridge is usually, traditionally, it's happens between the second chorus and the last chorus, or maybe before a solo. And in I'll give you an example of one of Kenny's great bridges is Heart to Heart's bridges. Why are you so torn apart? Need a little more love than my people say. It's a part that happens in the song that only happens once, and it's a departure. That's why it's called a bridge.
We used them back in the day. We used the bridge to maybe take you out of that key for a minute. It was like a palate cleanser.
Oh yeah.
It's supposed to lift you out of that tonality for a second, and then when you come back in with a chorus or
like this
whatever,
is no one can tell you for you know. And that's the bridge.
And of course it modulates.
Yes.
In those days.
Yes.
So nobody does that shit anymore.
But you wrote a bridge with Charlie Puth and Mike McDonald.
Yeah.
And is it for Charlie? It's for Charlie's
It's for
record?
Charlie's record,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
He's
awesome.
doing a theme record, like you and I talked about. He's doing an 80s theme.
How did
bunch of artists.
How did the song begin? Did he have something that you jumped off of, or did Mike, or did
he
you?
was showing us. He's got vintage synthesizers. Can I have some wine, please?
Yes.
He has vintage synths in his room.
Yeah.
That's why we call them synths, because you can't say the whole word. And
Sympathizers.
sympathizers in his room. And so he was showing us all these really cool sounds that he was getting. And he got into this kind of...
Oh, like a 6/8 thing?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And he went into that, and I said, keep doing that. All three of us really just started jamming vocally on top of that thing, and it evolved, as that happens. But that was the groove. The groove came in and said, this now.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, because somebody has to make a decision to take the next step into
Absolutely.
that. Otherwise, you just keep going from idea to idea, and you never land on anything long enough to make it into a song.
Right.
And I heard that thing go by, and I thought, that's a great groove. Let's work with that.
So the mentoring thing has sort of taken over for you, but how much do you miss?
No, let me explain that. In that book, Strength to Strength,
Yes.
From Strength to Strength, they talk about utilizing your crystalline intelligence once you pass a certain age. It's 50-something is what he generally refers to.
He has we should look up his name, because it's a really good book. He was a surgeon, right?
A sturgeon?
He was a fish. He was a sturgeon.
No, he was a political analyst. Well, he's probably a few things.
I want to give him a little shout out because it's a really good book.
Yeah. But in the process, let me see if I can get back to that thought. You keep interrupting me. Fucking son of a bitch.
Crystalline intelligence.
Yeah.
Arthur C. Brooks.
Arthur C. Brooks.
Arthur C. Brooks.
I want to meet him because I probably have a dozen questions.
Yeah. Yeah. We can
In my
cut that.
process of learning how to be a mentor, learning how to help a young artist become more of who they are. First, I have to hear the potential in that artist, and I have to see that they're dedicated to what they're doing. And that's how I felt about Hunter. I really checked that out. Is this something you want to do? Do you want to quit everything and go into this field? Because I'll back you if you do. And she said, absolutely. And I said, then let's do it. And that, to me, is the essence of what I do is I try. My daughter, Hannah, at the time, who's now Lou,
Yeah.
she was when she was a young songwriter, she was very precious about her stuff. And I had to be careful how I made my suggestions because she was the daughter of Kenny Loggins, and she did not want to be a mini-me. She wanted to be her own thing. So whenever I would try to say, well, I would have done this or I would have done that, she'd say, I don't care what you would have done. This is what I'm doing. And so I had to learn how to talk to her, how to get through to her. So the lessons I learned with her, I brought to the table with Hunter. Mm-hmm.
And you have to explain who Hunter is in your life.
Well, not right yet.
Oh, okay.
We'll save that.
Okay.
That when I really listened to her work,
Yeah.
it took me a little time to realize it's fully formed.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't need me to make it into some version of me. My job is to take it to the next step.
She's also dramatically different than you, stylistically. Dramatically.
Yeah, and
phenomenal, but
that's part of the joy that I get from it, is I get to move into new territory with this artist. What would I do? So I told myself, she's like a young Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
What would I do if I was producing Joni Mitchell right now? How much respect would I bring to the table?
Right.
Would I tell Joni not to use that word or not to use that chord? Probably not. I would probably try and say, well, how can we take this and make it emotionally more?
Mm-hmm.
In those days, of course, you just leave it alone, turn on the microphone, let her sing.
Yeah.
But today, I think you need to do a little more with whatever the production is. I don't want to overproduce, but I want to bring enough to make the beautiful parts even more beautiful.
Do you feel like Hunter has a point of view that's her own?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah. And it took me a while to learn that. You know, when I tried overdubbing things and she'd go, no, that's not what I want. And I thought, well, you know, is she just being precious?
Yeah.
And then the more I dropped in, the more I realized she just knows what she's doing.
And what she wants.
At 23.
Yeah.
And I thought, I didn't know that. At 23, I was trying every hat on I could.
Yeah.
And so I've been moving into her music in that fashion, trying not to. My biggest challenge is going to be we're about to record my song "Love Will Follow."
Oh yeah.
For her in her style.
Wow.
And my challenge is to let go of everything I think I know about that song. And where do we go? Where would you go with Joni if she was recording "Love Will Follow"? And the difference, of course, is that Hunter has a sort of R&B sensibility.
That's such a great R&B song.
Yeah, it's got that vibe that's all the way there. So where do we go with that? So I'm bringing in some great players who are smooth jazz R&B players,
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Washington, Herman Matthews,
Yep.
Everett Harp, who's had like 4 #1 smooth jazz albums. And we're all going to play at the same time. Nobody does that anymore.
Wow, I'm doing it next week.
Yeah, good for you. Well, we're dinosaurs.
Yeah, but there's nothing more thrilling than that.
Yeah, it's you lay it all on the table right here.
And it's really truly.
By the way, do you owe me $100?
No, it's a wash.
Oh,
Because we were both.
you both won.
It pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. I was pissed. I was sure it was just Tom Snow. So I think what you're describing is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you went in like as a mentor, but then eased into almost like a facilitator, almost or like you're, instead of mentoring, you're kind of creating a wider path for her to do her thing.
Yeah. And
occasionally,
and once we
reining
nail
her
it,
in.
then I introduce her to people who can help her.
Yeah.
And instead of writing the bridge to her tune or writing,
Right.
I say, I think this could use more tension. This isn't quite there yet. Surprise me with something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this chorus is not quite landing for me. How do we get out of this? She wrote for quite a while with a single tonality. She was using Joni's tunings, and she'd find this one riff and she'd play it over and over, and then she'd make up her melody on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't change. And I'd say, at some point, please change this riff.
Yeah.
Because I want to be surprised with something, and then we come back to it. And so she would do it.
Yeah.
And in that process, she created some really beautiful things.
I'm going to probably be texting you every once in a while because I'm about to enter into a pretty big mentoring, literally, with The Voice in Australia.
Oh, that's right.
And I've never really done anything like that before, except, I've produced several people's first records. I produced the first Josh Groban single, and
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of that experience. But again, it was very different than this.
I saw Josh perform at the David Foster birthday party at the
Yeah.
Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
He blew me away.
Yeah. He's great.
He's so present.
Yeah. He's better than he's ever been.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether anybody will believe us, but he is amazing.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, his fan base will certainly believe it.
Yeah.
That was one of those, like, David Foster used to trot him out at these charity events, right?
Yeah.
Because he was this little kid, like 18 years old, with a voice like Bocelli,
I know.
and the face didn't fit the voice, or I should say the voice didn't really fit the face, and
Yeah.
it was almost like a carnival act for a second. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. And the other one was Bublé.
Bublé.
I did a corporate show with Bublé at David's request. And I thought, who the fuck is this?
A Sinatra imitator.
It's like Sinatra Part 2, but David saw way more there
Absolutely.
than we did.
But I remember
And he is great, by the way.
he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's great. And he's on The Voice here.
Oh, yeah.
He's a coach on The Voice, and I'm headed down to do the show in Australia. But the thing with Josh that was so interesting was David asked me to write a song for him because I had seen him at these charity events. And David said, look, I'm doing this first album for him. I couldn't believe that he got him a record deal.
I know.
Because it was like, how are you going to sell an
That's
opera
the
singer
power of David Foster.
in the year 1999 or 2000? And they made this whole album, and David said, we need one more song. I really don't even have time to produce it, so if you write something that they like, you
It's a
should
great
produce
song,
it.
by the way.
Thank you. And it was so fun for me because it took me out of my usual thing, where I was like, I have to adhere to a different set of parameters. And I got to use chord progressions and chord changes
Yeah.
that I didn't even know I knew. I
Yeah.
would never have used them in a pop song. But I've never really had a, like, I think you did a stint on American Idol at one point, right, where you worked with
I
some
did
kids.
a couple days of being a guest judge.
Yeah.
And my favorite moment was that there was a woman that came on who was a psychic. And her mother was a psychic. And they asked her before her performance, are you going to win American Idol? And she said, absolutely. I see it. Then she came on and she was really not good. Really very not good.
Very not good.
And I said, my comment was, this is the first time I've seen someone destroy two careers at once.
Did it make the show?
Yeah.
You said it?
They ran it over and over again. They loved that. It was not nice.
That's the only part of what I'm about to experience that I'm dreading, is that there are going to be some kids who really think that they are, who've been told by their family or their friends.
I don't think you'll have any trouble being an asshole.
Good night, everybody. That thing where you have my friends and my aunt said I was really a great singer, and then they're just, how do you tell somebody that they're not? I'm not going to be mean at all, because I wouldn't be, but I'm going to have to get creative with my,
That's hard.
yeah. So I might be texting you, what do I say?
Well, don't mentor anybody you don't like.
No, I won't. I'm going to be picky.
You're just trying to get them to take that next step up.
Oh, while I have you on camera, speaking of this is true.
Please buy Richard Marx's next record.
Yes, thank you. I'm not saying for sure that this is going to happen, but as you know, one of the ways that we're lucky as songwriters is our songs get licensed to all these contest shows. So your songs have been performed by countless contestants on The Voice and American Idol, mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
If a contestant on The Voice Australia chooses a Kenny Loggins song and they're good, I might be calling you on the air.
Oh, cool.
Because they love that.
Oh, that's fun.
So just know that might happen.
Okay.
And you're the only big name I have in my phone. So
buy a new phone.
And with that, cheers,
Are we
Kenny.
done?
Yeah, we're done.
We're going to
We're gonna
dinner
go to
now?
dinner, yeah.
Not done yet.
Oh yeah, we're not done. because I do this thing. Every episode, I give my guest, and I always forget.
Parting gift?
I give you a parting gift. I decided, what can I give my guest that's a little different? And not everybody is into this, but I think you would be.
Money?
Money. It was a little W-4 to sign. I give people a piece of vinyl from my record collection, which a lot of it is my father's old record collection. So I've given some really cool jazz records. And this won't necessarily surprise you at this point, but look what I have.
Oh, that's why
I asked you.
Yeah.
So this is...
The first one, Big Pink, right?
Yeah. The band. Robbie Robertson, Rick Denko. I texted Kenny earlier today and I said, were you a fan of the band? And he was like, oh, yeah.
You said, and Robbie Robertson.
And Robbie Robertson.
But the lead singer was? Levon?
Levon Helm.
Yeah.
And the drummer. No, Levon Helm was the drummer.
He and Don Henley were the only lead singing drummers.
Right.
They were never in a band together.
Oh, can you imagine? Do you have a record player at home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Lisa gave it to me last Christmas.
Well, now you have an original vinyl of the band.
Very cool. Be interesting to hear how it holds up. Because this was an era of music that we were probably what we would call alternative country was probably what we were listening to at this time.
Yep.
And they
Which
were
was
very,
what the Eagles were too.
old.
The Eagles were very alternative country too.
Who was?
The Eagles.
Yeah, we were, Jimmy and I and the Eagles were both heavily influenced by Stephen Stills and Buffalo Springfield. And
Tequila Sunrise is a country song. Mm-hmm. Lion Eyes is a country song.
yeah, Lion
a bunch
Eyes.
of yours.
Or mayonnaise.
Yeah.
You can't hide your mayonnaise.
Your like some of the Loggins and Messina stuff is like country.
Yeah, that's where we were at the time.
Yeah.
Jimmy's from Texas.
Yeah.
So he comes by it honestly.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for hanging with me. And you're the best. We give each other a lot of shit because a part of our friendship is based upon friendly sarcasm. But, as I said to you around the end of your tour, I have so much respect for you. And
Thank you.
I love that we're pals.